Hello, and welcome to the Lines That Never Were series, where we take a look at proposed but forgotten New York City subway projects. In this video, we'll take a look at the IND Concourse extension, including its history, remnants, and whether the IND Concourse extension is needed today. Plans for the IND Concourse extension dates back before the IND. Back in 1920, planners wanted to extend the IRT 3rd Avenue L over Gun Hill Road and Boston Road to the city limits. Even though that was not a one-to-one comparison, it is still close to the IND Concourse extension as it provided cross-Bronx service. In 1922, Mayor John Hylan unveiled his plan for the Independent Subway System, or IND. In the plan, he proposed the IND Concourse Line. This line was to parallel the IRT Jerome Avenue L, a deliberate feature of John Hylan. Since Hylan wanted to bankrupt the IRT and BMT, creating his city-owned train company and running parallel service with high-speed subways was surely going to pull more money out of the already struggling IRT. This was so that Hylan could justify tearing down the Jerome Avenue L. But here's where the story got interesting. Originally, the IND Concourse Line was to be 4 tracks, but it was scaled down to 3 tracks. You could see the scale downs in place at 145th Street's lower level and Fordham Road, as one platform is clearly wider than the other, indicating space for a 4th track. However, it is unknown why the IND scaled it down. A popular urban legend was the IRT sued the IND for building it too close to the IRT's Jerome Avenue L, and in the end, 4 tracks became 3. But a more reasonable answer was cost, as Bronx back then was not as developed, meaning that the IND did not need a quad-track line. Combined with the Great Depression, this further made the IND scale the line down to 3 tracks. The IND Concourse Line opened in 1933 as a branch of the IND 8th Avenue line from 145th Street to Norwood 205th Street. But extension plans were happening before the line even opened. In 1929, the IND released its own IND second system. In the plans, the IND wanted to extend the IND Concourse Line via Burke Avenue and Boston Road to around Baychester Avenue. At Wilson Avenue, it will be joined with the IND 2nd Avenue line. This revealed that the IND wanted this line to compete with the IRT because in the vicinity of the area existed the IRT White Plains Road line, a line that served both the east and west sides of Manhattan back then. Since the IND also planned to run trains to the east and west sides of Manhattan in the area by proposing the IND Concourse extension, the IND hoped that their new subway will siphon riders off from the IRT White Plains Road line. This will drain their ridership, thus hurting the IRT's finances. Not that it mattered anyway, as the IRT lost a court case that required them to pay $1 million in legal fees, and the Great Depression would hit, causing the IRT to go into receivership in 1931. But just like the IRT, the IND was struggling to complete any new subway lines, so that extension was on the chopping block. In 1939, when the economy was improving, the IND reintroduced the IND second system. In the plan, there was no mention of the IND Concourse extension. Instead, planners were focused on buying the bankrupt Westchester and Boston Railroad, which was in the same area of the IND Concourse extension. Unlike many plans of the IND second system, the plan to buy the railroad succeeded, and in 1941, subway service on the railroad began from East 180th Street to Dyer Avenue. At first, this converted railroad, the IRT Dyer Avenue line, was a shuttle line, and commuters had to transfer from East 180th Street for a Manhattan-bound train. However, by the late 1950s, when developments were being built in the northern Bronx, planners considered connecting the IRT Dyer Avenue line to the IRT White Plains Road line at East 180th Street. That became reality in 1957, as all Dyer Avenue trains ran to Manhattan. In 1968, the Program for Action was introduced. In the plans, the IND Concourse extension was considered to extend to White Plains Road in order to connect to the IRT White Plains Road line. This was a massive scale down to what the IND wanted back in 1929. However, in 1975, the fiscal crisis hit, meaning that all subway projects had to be canceled. This did not matter much to the IND Concourse extension, as construction for this project did not even start. But even so, this crisis ended all discussion of sending the D further east. The IND Concourse extension does not have a lot of remnants, but there are some remnants if you know where to look. If you look at Norwood 205th Street, you'll notice something odd. This terminal station does not have switches going into the station, only a double switch after the station. This is evidence that the station was never meant to be a terminal station, as if the IND intended for Norwood 205th Street to be a terminal station, they would have placed a double switch right before the station. To the east of Norwood 205th Street, you'll see more tracks. Those are the tail tracks of the IND Concourse Line, and it allows the D to switch over to the other side. But these tracks also serve as a provision to extend the line further east. Of course, we should revive the IND Concourse extension. If you take a look at bus data, Cross Bronx bus service is extremely heavily used. In fact, the BX12, which runs on Fordham Road and Pelham Parkway, is the second most used bus route in New York City, with 40,000 riders in 2019. Parallel corridors are also heavily used. The Gun Hill Road corridor sees 12,000 riders, the Tremont Avenue corridor sees 28,000 riders, and the Morris Park Avenue corridor sees 11,000 riders. Combined with other miscellaneous bus routes, that is over 100,000 daily riders wanting to go across town in the Bronx. With upwards of 100,000 riders a day wanting to go east-west in the Bronx, the IND Concourse extension is definitely needed, as it will cut a east-west route in the Bronx. There are a few options to build the IND Concourse extension. None of them are cheap and easy to build. For all options, we highly suggest building an elevated to reduce costs and avoid scary downgrades, especially when the train reaches Co-op City, as the land will dip down around 70 feet. The first one is to extend the line via Burke Avenue. Then the line will turn onto Gun Hill Road, then onto Bartow Avenue, where it will end at Co-op City. Stations will be placed at White Plains Road for a transfer to the 2, Boston Road, Seymour Avenue for a transfer for the 5, Bartow Avenue, and the Bay Area Shopping Center. This alignment will parallel the heavily used Gun Hill Road corridor and give the dense Co-op City subway access. However, the BX12, where most of the ridership is about 3/4 of a mile away. But that is not the main issue, as in order for this extension to happen, it needs to cross the Bronx Park Reserve. However, any development or disruption on the reserve cannot happen, because it is a protected forever wild site, meaning a train line through the reserve is politically infeasible. The second option is to shift the IND Concourse extension north to Gun Hill Road immediately after Norwood. Stations will be at White Plains Road for a transfer to the 2, Laconia Avenue, Seymour Avenue for a transfer to the 5, Bartow Avenue, and the Bay Area Shopping Center. This will avoid the Bronx Park Reserve and directly serve the Gun Hill Road alignment. Although this is our personal favorite, this does have a limitation, because cross-Bronx ridership is concentrated along the BX12, which is 1 mile away in some parts. The third option is to better serve the BX12 bus route. Since Norwood is too far north, we can ditch the IND Concourse extension and extend the Inwood branch of the A east towards the Bronx. This alignment will run under the BX12 route, with stops at Sedgwick Avenue, Jerome Avenue, Grand Concourse for connections to the B, D, and 4 trains, Webster Avenue, Southern Boulevard, White Plains Road for a connection to the 2, Esplanade for a connection to the 5, Eastchester Road, Stillwell Avenue, Gun Hill Road, Bartow Avenue, then Co-op City Boulevard. However, this will be the most expensive, and a significant portion of the route won't be needed, as ridership for cross-Bronx service is concentrated east of Grand Concourse. Finally, there's the terrain of Western Bronx, as it is hilly, meaning that it is very hard to build a train line. All of this would make the project more expensive than it needs to be, as the portion that is the most expensive, Western Bronx, is not even needed. Finally, we have a scaled-down version of the third option, a branch of the IND Concourse Line at Fordham Road. This will have to involve a lower level of the current Fordham Road station before turning it under Fordham Road to be in alignment of the BX12. Stations will be at Webster Avenue, Southern Boulevard, White Plains Road for a connection to the 2, Esplanade for a connection to the 5, Eastchester Road, Stillwell Avenue, Gun Hill Road, Bartow Avenue, then Co-op City Boulevard. This will serve the heavily used BX12 corridor. A downside to this plan is that you're cutting Kingsbridge Road and Bedford Park's Boulevard's capacity, heavily used stations on the IND Concourse Line. But the IRT Jerome Avenue line is in the vicinity of the two stations, and if the interline correctly, these stations might see better service than today. One of the most important transit projects that the city can take is by building the Cross Bronx subway. The IND Concourse extension is the perfect project that addresses this need, because even though it is a north-south line, it turns east of 205th Street, making it east-west. The overwhelming majority of cross-Bronx ridership lies east of Concourse, meaning that by doing this extension, you will be benefiting a lot of commuters, as commuters will no longer need to take a slow bus to go cross town. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the IND Concourse extension? Let us know in the comments below, and have a good day.